Hey, it's 28 millimeter RPG, and this is going out to Sinmaan. I've decided to put this together before I go to work today. It's going to be a 8-hour work, and then come home and get the boys together for a game tonight. So hopefully you guys show up for that. So Sinmaan was asking, what kind of what to do with downtime with Traveler. So what he's talking about is basically the 7 days in jump space when you're in a jump bubble, and this is when your ship is traveling from point A to point B in space, as far as interstellar travel goes. And then the ship pops out of the bubble and you are in regular space in the new system, that your target system, hopefully, if your astrogation roll works well enough, yeah, you are there. And if not, well, then you are someplace else. And if you've seen on the last video, I kind of gave you a perspective of how huge space is, and if if you've watched that video, you've seen how uh, I showed a representation of how big the ring of asteroids is around the sun. But I didn't show you the sun itself because that would have been way too small. It would have been just basically a little dot on the screen, and then the planets themselves are going to be even smaller dots on the screen, which you wouldn't even be able to see. So, if you will see how huge the Oort cloud is around that, and all the possibility of other items, objects, and things that could be floating around in space around the region of your sun, um, it just astounds the mind of how huge that area is and what could be contained within there. Who knows? Uh, when you look at that, you know, if you've seen those videos where they're talking about where they see exoplanets and stuff like that with their telescopes, with all the imaging stuff, I kind of throw that into still in the theory. They're speculating really, because if you realize how small a planet is in that scale around that little dot that's going to be the sun, yeah, it boggles the mind. I think when we're looking at stars, when we see stars up in the sky, we see the basically the Oort clouds, the halo around the star itself, and that's what we're seeing gleaming through, and there's just so much material around the stars by the looks of it, and I mean, it's cool to see what, and then you got to think about what could be around those stars. There could be like, uh, you know, lots of cloud debris, probably, tons of stuff from collisions of other heavenly bodies out there, and you just have to let your imagination go with that. But here we are now talking about the downtime. So you're now I'm a game master that um, really pinpoints a lot of his time and prep on the NPCs. So I find that is the best way to create opportunities for drama and mishaps and weird stuff going on socially between the players and the NPCs. and that creates a lot of it just creates a lot of interesting stuff. So some of the stuff I will show you here is kind of vital in the prep and getting ideas on what to do with that downtime. So first off, the first thing I ask the players is if they're doing anything to enhance any skills, because downtime is a good time to go ahead and start learning new stuff. Now, if you know how Traveler is done, if you're using a different type of rule system or whatever, this may not be important, but in Traveler, enhancing skills, this is the only way you're able to do it. You're not in a leveling system, so you're basically given a character that knows all of whatever skills they have learned throughout their lifetime, and you're playing them from that point onwards. So they have a full background, they've got enemies, rivals, all that kind of stuff. You got to use that. Use that information as a game master, because that's going to give you some really cool prompts in order to make NPCs show up that are adversaries, rivals, enemies, or friends, or contacts, and that sort of stuff. So now, when you've got a crew together, you basically have an opportunity, because depending on whether or not it's just players, if you just have the players together and they don't have any extra crew members, then this may have to have a little bit of prompting between, like the players themselves. You see whether or not there is going to be any interactions between the players first off, to give them the opportunity to do so, because sometimes the players will want to do that, but you have to kind of read your players to see whether or not that's of interest with them. If they're interested in having that player-to-player interaction and having some sort of drama or thing evolve from that. The only other way that you're going to imply any kind of interesting thing during that bubble time is if there is, if they're not in stasis chambers or cryo sleep chambers or whatever, there could be events that happen which, like with subsystem mishaps, electromagnetic fluctuations with the field around them, which could cause interference with the ship, could blow out systems, that sort of stuff, cause minor things to happen with the computer or something in the power system. They may have to do something to rectify that. And the thing with Traveler, it doesn't really get deep into the how things work. You could go ahead and I've seen a generator out there where you could have where it gives you basically a technobabble kind of thing, where it's saying we need to get a synchronizer blah 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 to recalibrate the particle accelerator or something like that. It gives you a lot of technobabble that you can use in your game. So, I mean, you could use something like that to kind of explain, and the players will have to go ahead and do something like fix it somehow while they're in the space bubble. And I had that in my live session, where that created an ability to open up to an NPC player interaction. In the case of Scorch, Scorch is a robotics expert, so they used one of his robots to go ahead and repair something on the outer shell of the hull of the ship, and that kind of gravitated a relationship between Dave's character, his player character, and Scorch, the NPC. Other things that were happening, I had basically some small notes. And if I'm doing a pen and paper, on the table game, I'll write down the NPCs names if you got NPCs, and I always throw in NPCs because it makes things a little bit more interesting with the crew. Because if you just had the players, then all you basically have is what can the players do to rectify the situation, and go from there. NPCs kind of add a little bit more of wild card kind of things to happen, because in the case of like Jen, the NPC I had in the game, she's a no nonsense mercenary, and she's got a lot of experience in terms as far as combat goes. I think she has like 3 terms, so she's in like her 30s, and she has a kid at home, and that's basically what I wrote down was her basic stats, her age, the terms, and a couple of notes saying, okay, she has a 5-year-old kid at home. And so that kind of sets her up to be, she needs to survive this. This is going to be her focus of willpower throughout the game, is no matter what, uh, she is going to survive this. That's her mindset, because she can't leave her child alone at home to fend for herself. She needs this job in order to be a cut and dry, get things done, get out, everybody, herself especially, alive. And so that's going to cause a little bit of tension in the party, especially when it comes down to what's happening right now. Because, first off, yeah, she got paid some of the money. She's not getting paid all of the money unless Captain Rocksalt can come up with the funds somehow. And second off, she needs to get back home, because this is, as far as she's concerned, bullshit. Uh, Being captured by bounty hunters and now dropped off on a abandoned space station. Her plan is going to be, I'm getting out of here somehow, and whoever's going to be siding with her on that endeavor is her friend and ally, and whoever is causing issues, impeding of her endeavors is going to be the enemy. And I'm kind of pulling black and white here, as far as, extremes with here. But, there will be some gray area with her, of course. So as players gravitate towards certain NPCs, you start filling out some more notes about them, and that's the thing about this is get enough information on your NPCs in order so you can play them properly and know their motivations and their goals, and this will cause you enough lesser pain, as because what happens is players will either gravitate towards certain NPCs or not, and that's entirely on the player's side. So make sure you have enough notes just so that you can get by, and then if they seem to gravitate or latch onto that NPC, boom, start writing down some more notes after the session and get a little bit more fleshed out ideas on those NPCs. That way you've got something going on with the crew and the NPCs, and there's going to be contention and challenges as far as things like that go. So always, if you're playing session after session after session, pick an NPC, okay? And if you're doing like a jump here to jump here to jump here, every time they jump, pick an NPC and create an event with that NPC. And see whether or not there's, you could have the NPC interact with player characters. You can have the NPC openly being viewed interacting with another NPC for drama, conflict, show hints of maybe alternative motives here, or ulterior motives, relationship development, or like I say, events that that may feature the NPC skill in something, such as like Scorch showing off that he can create robots and have them help in some way in remedying some sort of situation on a ship or or something like that. That way it creates some interest, and the players kind of have an idea of who they're dealing with as far as non-player characters. Um, if you haven't picked up this book for Traveler, it's the Traveler Companion. This has some really good ideas in here. It extends some of the information on trying to put together uh, the backgrounds a little bit more. It's got some ideas in there for some enemies, rivals, and that sort of stuff. There is a lot of information on different impactive situations like breathing, vacuum, high pressure, low pressure, different kinds of breaches for your suits and stuff like that, toxic chemicals and things. And it also talks about, besides environmental, gives you a few cool critters to fool around with, and some refereeing notes here, which can help. And we also got some information on the starports, spaceports, the situation as far as slower than light travel. It gives you some information there to think about. Jump travel, which is very important, where you're going to get this initial information from. Also, little variances in the what could happen with bad jumps or bad rolls in making your astrogation rolls. Um, Also, some ideas in traveling in just normal space, mine warfare, gas giant operations, and some stuff about transponders, registry, and mortgages, which came into play with the players, as far as ID and stuff. So, Rock Salt's ID has been switched by his brother, nefariously, and so his brother now owns everything that he was given. So the whole idea was the brother was being sought after by a pirate organization, and he decided to switch his ID with his brother Rock Salt, and Rock Salt is the victim of ID theft. So now, as far as Rock Salt's ID is concerned, he is his brother who is wanted, and he's being chased by a bounty hunter. So and it happens to be the same bounty hunters that are hunting Dave's character and wants vengeance on him. So now they're in a situation where they're on a space station and they're trying to survive on an abandoned space station, and they've got a time limit because the what's going to happen is the bounty hunters are going to return eventually. However, when they're on this space station, now they're scrounging around for food and water, which is important. And they don't have any on them, and they have a fairly large contingent of NPCs. So they have about, I think it's around 10 other non-player characters, and they are getting agitated. So they need food and water and all that stuff. But as far as setting up, getting some resources here that are helpful, don't forget to, if you can, pick up these patron books. They're fairly inexpensive on DriveThruRPG, but they give you a lot of interesting information. This one, well, I've got two of them here. This is the first one I'm going to show you. This one gives you some, everything's divided up into different types of patrons: military, space, upper class, middle class, lower class, mercenary, and wild card. These have very good little blurb explanations. And also, what I want you to kind of look at here is these little referee information die roll, so variations of each character here. So in this case, media leak, it gives you a little explanation of what could be possibly going on here, and then boom, it gives you a little bit of a twist. So read through these. You don't have to roll them or randomly, but read through them and you'll get some really good ideas on some prompts on the way that the NPCs could interact in the game. And it can lead to some very interesting situations. So that's the whole thing, is you want to have interesting situations happen. If there's something that it is kind of just useless information, it's kind of a waste of time. So don't interact with just to waste time. You want to interact in order to provide interest. So that is important. This version is a much thicker version of that book. And this one is arranged a little bit differently. So this one you have everything involved in encounters. So in the case you're in a city sprawl, megacorp, star base, military base. So it outlines everything a little differently. But you get the same sort of information in here as well. So in this case, they actually give you a name and everything, and they also give you more of a prompt background and some ideas. And there's some really good kind of ideas to develop some sort of thing going on for the game purposes. And it gives you, once again, another list of possible outcomes and stuff. So read through these, get some ideas. You might come up with some things that you never even thought about. So that fills in a lot of that downtime. So with the power of NPCs in that sort of situation, it works. Like I say, if you just have the players themselves in the group and that is it, they don't have NPCs, you can use the computer. The computer can always interact. You could have, whatever, robots, that sort of thing, AI of all different kinds. Or you could maybe introduce something a little bit more interesting. There could be an infestation of some sort on the ship, that sort of thing. It could be a physical infestation. It could be something that is maybe electromagnetic in nature. Maybe it's entities that are electromagnetic in nature. You could do all kinds of bizarro kind of things and make it sound kind of plausible. Nano technology built societies in nano scale that are invading the ship and having a war with the players. I don't know, weird stuff like that. The thing with Traveler, you have to go to those kind of weird things sometimes, or something that piques some sort of mystery interest. What's happening? Why are my books being shredded to pieces? Well, the nano society is utilizing them for resources or something like that. So you could do all kinds of things. They may be connecting to their power conduits and draining off a little bit of micro power in order to fulfill their energy needs for their nano empire in the hull of their ship. Something weird like that. But it develops interest and creates kind of like an episode where, wow, this is like something that you would see in a Star Trek episode, right? So, but if you're continuing in kind of like a series of events to lead to some sort of a campaign, I mean, you could develop things differently that way too. There could be, you could have some sort of interaction that continues with these nano society, and and they decide to live in kind of like a co-optive peace between the players on the ship. And you got to think of some kind of weird things like that every once in a while, just to make it different, right? Now, as far as so if as far as getting into regular space, so poof, they come out of their space bubble, and you figure out where they're gonna be located in that whole, because you realize that so you know that the hexagon that I show in the last video, and you divide that into 20 hexes across, and then 20 more, and then inside, and then 20 more, and you go into the infinitesimal. You could have multiple, like a trinary system with brown dwarves. These are kind of like suns that dead suns that are so dim, but they will have their own little um, solar systems in these areas. But this is the main star, and their Oort cloud and everything. And some things just aren't totally detected in the outer reaches of space. So you could put all kinds of weird stuff in real space in this area. So depending on how well they jumped, they could be poofed in the system and then continue on. They have to, you calculate basically how long it's going to take them to reach areas inside their solar system here. And sometimes it could end up being over a week of time, and depending on their fuel allowance in their power plant, they may have a problem, so that could come up. So first off, fuel is vitally important. They need to go to a gas giant. There could be patrol boats, system patrol ships, that sort of thing. Pirates, lost stations. In case of this game, that if you're watching it, it's a lost station somewhere in the outer reaches of one of the solar system here. Spy stations. There could be different spy stations out here sent from a different star system to kind of spy on the region and report information on troop movements, that sort of thing. There could be even lingering. There could be an invasion force just outside here waiting for the right moment to strike or something like that. Who knows? You can have all kinds of ideas in there that interact with the players. Patrol, like I say, more NPC drama during this time as well if you have NPCs. But I do highly recommend players traveling with NPCs because that makes more interest happen. SOS, Maydays, that sort of thing. Or maybe they come across a stash dumped before they got into the system or something like that in the outer reaches, and then they find something valuable in there. Maybe somebody's looking for that. Maybe there's a transponder connected to this item, and they're gonna track them down that way. So a lot of things you can do, but like I say, make it interesting. Don't make it just a mundane, boring thing that something that doesn't really impact anything in the game, because you see that happen a little bit in movies, but movies will try to stay away from that because they want to show you things that have some sort of impact in the game. There's a reason why it's focusing on this one part of the ship. It's showing you that there's something going on, some sort of fluctuation, and that will become something later on in the game. It might be a fissure that the players will have to fix later on, or it may give at a point in time later on in the game when the players have totally forgotten about it. Boom! Oh yeah, we were supposed to fix that. Shit, those kinds of situations. Or even like somebody notices a NPC with a certain kind of weird briefcase or something. Well, then make that briefcase have some sort of implication to the upcoming ideas that you have in the game. There might be, maybe there's a bomb in there. Maybe there's transponder in there. You got to have, if you're going to show stuff and point things out, but kind of give it a kind of a vague reference to it. Make sure it has some sort of importance later on in the game. The players will go, oh yeah, and they'll be a little bit more. You're setting things up so your players get used to you and get used to your style of gaming, because you could be one that doesn't even think about these things, and the players are thinking, well, maybe this has something to do with something. So then they become curious and start checking things out. Depends on their past in playing, that sort of thing. So try to do a transit event every once in a while that they're traveling, at least once. Something that could be remedied by the players if they're by themselves, or with the help of the NPCs to kind of build up the NPCs in the player's eyes, that they be useful in some sort of respect. Like I say, if your players gravitate towards player NPC interaction, cool. If they don't, I mean, you could skip that kind of stuff and then introduce something more of a struggle going on the ship. But building up towards that is a cool thing too. As the game goes on, and there's a lot of things you can do. You just have to, kind of think about it. You can go back to some of the old shows, like funny enough, like the Love Boat from the 70s and 80s. If you've never, it was a series about a cruise ship. So it was kind of like a big advert way of a show where they were advertising that cruise ships are cool, and going on a cruise is an awesome thing. And so they created this series on TV that had a captain and doctor and all these crew members that you kind of got to know, and they're basically the player characters. And then every once in a while they'll have like interactions between the crew members and the passengers. And there might be something weird going on with the passengers. There might be a relationship happening between and it's usually the doctor and one of the passengers and stuff like that. Inappropriate behavior, if you were to consider nowadays, kind of. But it was drama, and they were developing character and stuff like that. And sometimes you would have interesting situations in a show. Sometimes you need to watch crazy stuff like that in order to get some ideas, because it's the same thing in Traveler. You could be players that have a liner, and so you're shipping NPCs from point A to point B and doing a route kind of idea. And the route may be mundane, but the NPCs that you have on board are going to be what creates different cool situations. So that is where you're going to have to be, deciding on how to work in NPC relationships with the players, whether or not they work functionally with the as far as helping in the situation, whatever situation that may come on. They could be boarded by pirates as a liner, and then suddenly are some of these NPC passengers. Could they be former space seals or whatever? They could help interact with thwarting the boarding parties coming on board from the pirates, or something like that. I mean, you could watch Under Siege with Steven Seagal, and watch that kind of interaction with the characters and stuff. Get ideas from that too. there's tons of ideas from watching different shows. I mean, you could even take experiences in your own real life, like taking a uh, boarding a plane and going from point A to point B. You're going to have different interactions with the waitresses or whoever is serving dinner and stuff like that. You'll see interactions between other passengers and that sort of thing. And there might be some sort of contention going on. There could be some sort of outburst that happens, or there could be like a, you could introduce a lot of if scenarios, like hijackings and stuff like that in your game itself, and implement that kind of weird stuff. And who knows, you've got unlimited possibilities with this game. So uh, watch or reflect upon maybe your experiences and travel, and come up with some cool stuff from that. That's basically all I have to say about filling up time. So NPCs, very important. Like I say, make sure also that the players, once again, they're doing something. They have goals themselves. They could be enhancing their skills at this time as well. That would be your first question of the entire passage of time from point A to point B. Are you doing something? Are you enhancing a skill? Okay, we'll keep that in the background. You are doing this, studying, blah, blah, blah. But in the meantime, bring in something interesting as well with an NPC. Boom, you've got some sort of contention or drama happening. Or if they're all by themselves, you could have a situation happen outside of the ship, or you could have some sort of infestation inside the ship, or you could have all kinds of weird stuff. You don't want to do this all the time. If it's something continuous and they're traveling and going from point A to point B, C, D, E, you might want to do this just a little bit. You might want to have maybe a boring, one where it just basically your passage of time just goes by. And if the players want to have interaction during that time, let them. But kind of read the room and see when you have to push on from real time to, okay, advance to coming out of the bubble. So it's entirely up to you and how you read your players. So that's all I have to say about this. Hopefully that helps. So Sinmaan, I hope this helps you in some sort of way. But like I say, NPCs always key in any game. Just develop them in some sort of easy fashion, and then work on them on your non-game time. Just fill out things, knowing that they've gravitated towards certain NPCs, and build them up that way. That's all I have to say. So thanks for tuning in. Hopefully somebody out there likes this video and decides to subscribe. Go for it. If you're seeing, just to let you know, I've watched my videos like just to review over some of the stuff. And if you see ads on top, I don't mind if you have an ad blocker. I will never monetize my videos. So if you see ads on them, ad block away.